These cryptos can 10x. This is NC Hammer Crypto. My name is Neil. As always, keeping technical analysis short and sweet. And this time it's for real. Those people who are angry about having the fake titles, here's the analytics. Everything with a fake title has gotten me more views than anyone's with actual normal titles. So I'm going to continue to do that even if I lose subscribers. But if you're sticking along, you guys are actually winning and learning more than most of the people. So we have this forming out with Bitcoin. We had that push up, and this wick off is due to this area where we get a little bit of resistance. When we can close in this area, maybe a little bit of consolidation, we're more than likely to start that upward trend. And in this video, I'm covering compound, quant, XYO, LCX, and DNT, as they really can't go much lower. Compound, we see this black upward trend line is clearly support. We've tested it multiple times, even way back in the past. Down here, this is where it started, and you could consider this being somewhat where we'd have that trend line, but we hit a lower point a couple times, and we've tested it about 4 times. Is there a possibility of it going lower? Always, but in this case, the water is a little heavy, same with the 200 EMA, but we are pushing back into that with Bitcoin's movement upwards. And always when Bitcoin moves first, the altcoins lag behind, but they eventually do more percent than what Bitcoin does. So as we see last time, we had a really low point. We had a major push up above the previous high. So what we are expecting with this, not just off that one point, but we could expect a push up and try and close above this previous high, which would also be closing above the 200 EMA. And we see back here on June 8th, when we closed above that 200 EMA, we had that continuation upwards. So that's kind of what we are expecting with compound. You've had a couple months for the opportunity to buy around $40 to $46, stacking the bag as the all-time high is, I believe, 956. Some ridiculous number, 929. Currently at 42, but when this thing moves, we've seen it move very fast to the upside within a few days. You see it have that one pump, you're waiting for a retracement, and it just has a continuation further and further upward, trying to catch up with Bitcoin. So that's kind of what we are looking at with compound. Holding this black upward trend line is important. If we do see a lower wick off, we'll most likely see that retrace back up and start that upward momentum. This is a bear trap. All the bears are selling, thinking it's going to go lower, and then they miss the opportunity to gain that money on the upward momentum. But we are waiting it out with compounds similar to XYO. QNT is actually looking better and better by the day. We see that it had support here, right around the 618, and this previous on June 22nd when it had its low. And same thing here, bullish engulfing, closed over this previous orange candle, I guess a little under, but the next candle pushed up over, held above that 200 EMA, and we are getting more and more bullish momentum. So for Aaron, I know you're waiting for this line to be broken. When this does break, we could see this being the potential range up to around 124 or 110, potentially tapping that as support before that next push up. And then we would be looking at this area around 135 to around 130, as this is where we got some major rejection. So me personally, I always like to draw a little line going across for here and here. And that is roughly the range that we are going to expect a little bit of resistance, potentially a pullback and testing this 125 before the next move up. It's not going to be very fast, I want to imagine, as QNT has been playing out very slowly. And when it hits those resistance points, we get a little consolidation, the pop, the retest, and then a further high before ultimately testing the new high, which would be around this 149 area. This would be the next gap that we'd be dealing with in, and we may get a resistance at 173. Beyond that, it's got a long way to go. But just keep this one in mind. The volume is picking up. RSI is not on here at the moment, but I'm assuming it's very healthy as we are holding above that 200 EMA, keeping it nice and close, working within this downward trend line here, this black line and the one right above it. This is our channel. We need to break out of the channel to start a new one. Upward trend line, and then we would start building something from there, this point, working for an upward trend line, trying to get some support to have that continuation. Not much going on at the moment. Everything is trickling behind Bitcoin. So you've had your time to enter for these past months. And if you have any money left over, to start throwing it in there as well. You can also throw it at me for a tip. Shout out to Woozall. We're looking at 0.0255 for DNT, but similar to XYO, which I should bring up first. But DNT can't really go much lower. It did break this green upward trend line, which doesn't look the best, but is also a bear trap in my opinion. When we get back up above that green line, it's got very limited space between this downward trend line and the 200 EMA. And when those both get crossed at the same time, looking back in the 16th of November, we saw a major bullish movement upwards. And just that one pump, say you entered at the 200 EMA, was around 102%. We've seen this thing go a lot crazier when it gets above the 200 EMA and holds. Say back here in February, for example, 593%, but that's just the beginning. 25 cents is the all-time high for DNT. So if you got 2 cents and want to turn it into a quarter, I know it's not turning a nickel into a dime, it's a little bit better, but DNT is your option. The last two, XYO and LCX. XYO also does not look that good, but with Bitcoin pulling upwards, we are going to start seeing the rest of the market move with it. We have not hit this point down here at 0.007 being the previous low. So similar to XCN, we are forming somewhat the similar pattern. And when we break a downward trend line and 200 EMA at the same time, fair value gaps right here between 0.1 and 0.11 roughly. That is kind of your entry point if you have not entered at the absolute lows within this area. Up above that 200 EMA, this is where you're going to start seeing some movement to finish out the major cup and handle pattern. And ultimately, this cup and handles have quick movements. So breaking that and the 200 EMA, we could see this pump real quick, potentially to around 0.022 to 0.024 before a pullback and consolidation. And ultimately, we need to break that 0.025 to start seeing the next move up. But if you have not entered XYO, if you want, you could enter now as it's running out of space to break this downward trend line. Ideally, you'd want to be entering in above this 0.01 and the 200 EMA, but it could move very quickly. Not financial advice. And LCX, eyeballing this one. I know Jonathan's been looking at this since 27 cents for the upward momentum, but it's been in its downward consolidation. Finally found its support. You see all these lines trying to make sense of what's going on within the market, but all of that is invalid. So we got this bottom right here, we got this bottom right here. We are testing a higher bottom at this point, as well as that 200 EMA. And if we can consolidate over that and slowly ease up over this downward trend line, that is where your entry point is going to be. And LCX could be pushing up to the 618 at 0.27 cents, which is nearly double money. But first, we may get a little resistance around the 50% increase in price for LCX. Very good utility on this coin. If you have not entered, it's been in consolidation and working around the 200 EMA for a while, as well as volume picking up. It's looking better and better. I also want to bring in the RSI to get a better understanding of what's going on. And there it is. It's very healthy. It's pushing up over the yellow, and it is starting to build higher lows. So everything's actually looking very good for LCX. If you want to do your entry now, it may be a little bit, but you would be getting a pretty good entry point before breaking this downward trend line, and it moves very quickly. That's it for this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't. Reference links in the description below. Good luck. Have fun with it. I'll see you on the next one.